Hello again, my friends. Shall we talk a little more about this four-letter word, FEAR, and see if we can just, keep exposing it. It is so much my own process right now to just see it and then see through it. And in that process, being so sick and tired of it that I'm deepening this whole feeling of like, I have had enough. And that energy, that I talked about the other day, I think it was the one about my cat Sasha, where I just I just felt really like a deep, like no more. And and it makes me think of, can we, is it really possible to imagine a life where there is no fear? Because just think about it's almost everything in our lives that brings up fear, right? It's fear of disease, fear of losing things. That's huge. Losing my money, my house, my partner, my children, my pets. So a lot of the fear is correlated to loss. And that's something we live with all the time because the bottom line is we lose things all the time. And I'm not talking about, losing my keys. I'm talking about losing things that we feel we cannot live without, that we cannot survive without, and that will make us completely heartbroken. And this is the reality for a lot of people because there is a lack of connection with what is real and what is true. And what is real and true is not found in the illusion, in the veil of illusion, in the false matrix. It doesn't exist there. That is something that covers the truth. So we can think about what is it in us that keeps engaging with fear? Because it feels like we must, right? I must be afraid. I have actually had a few instances where I was engaging with some friends and they had a lot of fear around something and were upset about this, that, and the other. And I would just kind of say like, I'm not afraid. I don't have that fear. That's not part of my experience. And some of them almost get a little offended because like you should feel fear. It's almost like expected that we have to be afraid. So as you can hear, I keep coming up with little vignettes of how we just keep putting our energy into fear and accepting it as if that is normal, and we should all be afraid. And then, of course, the question is, what good does that do? What good does it do that, for instance, on my video with my cat Sasha, what is the point of me worrying and being afraid when I can't find her? What's the point? And there is no point. It's just, it's a program that just runs itself until I can really see it, just like it would be on a computer. You see there's the program running that is ruining, your computer, and then you have to, get rid of it. And that's how I see it more and more with the fear as more and more layers are just coming up, the subtlety or the persistence of it. And it's like, no, but why would I engage with fear? And that would be a question I'm going to invite you to ask yourself. What is the point of me engaging in fear? Is it helpful? There's many layers of fear, and there are fears that are probably wise, like when you cross the road it's not that you have to be afraid, but there has to be some kind of an alertness, so you don't get run over. And there will be other things where there is a healthy kind of alertness of fear that can help us make choices that will be better for us. But generally, the fears that we're experiencing, they have there's no point. They have no value, literally. They only have the value of feeding itself, where we're feeding the matrix, and that is what the matrix wants and needs. It needs our engagement, and it works every time because we have not questioned it enough. So, what would a life look like if you are not afraid? If you just walk through life fearless. And what is fearless? That would mean relaxed, trusting, open, and expecting good things to happen. Because that's the opposite of fear, right? The fear is expecting bad things to happen, bad things to come to me. Where if we don't have that fear, that negative expectation is also not there. So let's take just a moment here and just maybe close your eyes. If you can, if you're driving or something, don't, of course. But if you can just take a moment and take a nice breath and imagine living in a world where you are not afraid, where you don't need to be afraid, where fear, you have seen that the fear is not helping you create the life that you want. So just let yourself walk in your life and imagine that inside you are connected to a place where everything is harmonious, everything is peaceful, because in this inner space that you're tapping into, everything is self-maintained and self-sustained. That means you do not need to go in there and do something to make something happen or to make sure that something does not happen. Just take a breath and see if you even can get a glimmer of a world where everything is just maintaining and sustaining itself 24/7. It fulfills itself. It knows exactly what is needed and when and how. Just do your best. I know this is so opposite of how most of us live our lives. But if we don't at least open up to the possibility that that is possible, that is something that we can start tuning into. And the more we do that, this energy, it starts filling our lives with exactly that experience. Many people who are, trying to manifest their lives, trying to manifest a better life, things, better future self. There's a lot of work involved in that, and I think that's a beautiful process to start stepping out of feeling like we are a victim of our lives. So it's like taking back your power and start creating a life that is where you are in charge, where you are not a victim of your life anymore. And that is probably a very important step for most people, for most of us. And then at a certain point, in my experience, you start realizing that why do I even need to do that when I tune in to the field of oneness, the field of infinite possibilities, the heaven on earth, that I've talked about on other videos. Rumi's quote about there is a field beyond right doing and wrong doing, and I'll meet you there. Right, that is that field, and it's also the heaven on earth that uh, Thomas talks about in the Gospel of Thomas, that heaven is spread all over the earth and man cannot see it. Right? I've talked a lot about those two quotes. I think they're very, very important to really take them in, so you start realizing that there is something very different here and we are just not tuning into it. So that's why today is a little invitation for us all to start tuning into that and opening up to that. Because in here, there is no fear. As long, excuse me, as long as we live in the third dimension, in the false matrix world, there will always be fear because there is duality, and there will always be something that is threatening us, that could be a survival, could be losing things. That will always be here because it's duality. So we have to have receiving and losing, getting and losing, and being born and die. That is what it's like here. But when we dip into the field, that is not there, that doesn't exist there. So if we want to live without fear, we have to leave the false matrix, because it's made of fear. I've done a lot of work on that too over the years, in therapy and all kind of things. And I think it's very powerful that we can do that kind of work when we start unhooking from things and starting, doing some self-inquiry and healing these parts. But I think many of us now have come to a place where we need to see where we are still attached and hooked into the false matrix. And no matter how much therapy we do, we're still hooked into it. That means it will still feed us all the nonsense that we have been used to. So we come to a point where we have to start dipping into the place where there is no fear, where there is no loss, where there is no lack, where there is no war. So that's why I'm inviting us all to just imagine living in a place like that, because that place is real, but not to our senses. It's only true to our soul sense, because that is it. So we need to move our attention from the false matrix into our soul, into our heart, into our longing, because the longing is definitely, it gives us a taste of what we want. But normally we follow it out and try and get it out here, but it doesn't work. We have to leave this out here because There is no peace here, not true peace, but peace is who we are when we connect back into our soul. So, can we imagine living without fear? I can only do it when I leave that pressure that fear wants to take over and scare me and fill me up. I can only do that when I leave that consciously and, with a strong sword, like I shared before the other day, and then choose to connect with the place of oneness, which is what we all are. We are all one. That's why when there's only one, what are you going to lose? Who's going to argue with you? It's all one, and it's maintaining and sustaining itself. So we need to give ourselves permission to go there and let ourselves be fed by that so that we can start realizing what it is, how it works, and how we can make ourselves fully available for that. That's how we start building a new, what shall I say, not a new earth, but a new way of being. We simply shift from one dimension where there's war, duality, and fear. We shift into a different reality. And I'm not talking about bypassing. We do need to do the work here in the false matrix to unhook. Okay. If you're still hooked and you go here, then you do a bypass because part of your energy, you're still engaging with it. Once we come in here, then life gets really good. And of course, this is my own practice. I always only share what is true for me. And the more I do that, the more it becomes real for me. And then I start noticing that things change in my life that I didn't try to make happen. So, we can do the manifesting a life that we want, and at a certain point we drop that too, and then we we just want to be open to this new dimension. It's not new, this different dimension that we long for, that is pulling us. That's why we feel the longing. It says, come on here. So once we let ourselves drop into that, we don't need to do all the hard manifesting work. It will come natural. It doesn't mean we don't create things, but there's not that element of trying so hard. And again, that's another transition to learn to rest more. So today, my invitation to you and myself is to just keep going and ask, what is this that I long for? Is there such a thing as a world where there is no fear? Because I want that. And if there is, show me. And then you go inside. And then you open up and let yourself receive what comes. And you don't know what that is. You don't know when and how. But this can be an ongoing prayer where we just sit in here and say, show me.